Hi, my name is Elizabeth Thornhill. Welcome to Angels in Hiding. We will tell the stories of everyday, normal people who have endured very difficult trials in their lives and the people that have come alongside them and become their angels in hiding. I have experienced this many times in my life, and I'm sure you have as well. Be ready for your heart and soul to be encouraged and inspired. Today we will talk with Maria Simpson. Maria is the mother of Abe Simpson. Abe was 19 years old when he died in Fallujah, Iraq in November of 2004 after he was hit by an RPG. Abe was the oldest of 3 brothers. He loved backpacking, mission trips, and sharing his faith. He was devoted to his friends and family. He got a perfect score on the ASVAB, but he still chose to go into infantry. He told his mom, "I'm not going to send someone else to do a job I can and should be doing." He remained single because he knew he would be facing danger. He was also known for his beautiful blue eyes, which you will see in some pictures, and his easy smile. Please welcome Maria Simpson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about Abe as a child. And the character traits and qualities that you think led him into the military.
Well, Abe was, he's the oldest of three boys, and he decided to be, that he wanted to join the Marines early in life. He was 7 years old because he had heard a family member refer to the Marines, a family member that was in the Black Watch Regiment, referred to the United States Marines as the best fighting force in the world. So if he was going to be in the military, he wanted to be part of the best. So that was his focus since he was little, that he wanted to be, join the Marines. And that was in school and everything. He didn't always do his best, but he stayed out of trouble because he wanted to be a Marine and he wanted to be LAPD afterward. And so my husband encouraged him, you got to keep your nose clean in everything, have the right friends and not get in trouble, because he knew that it would keep him out of those goals that he had.
So he knew from a very young age that he wanted to go into the military.
Right.
What do you think, because I know when I was a young kid, I had all these dreams and aspirations, right? And then, I don't know, like a lot of people along the way maybe changed their mind, or did Abe ever?
No, because, my husband was in the Navy, and he comes from a long line of military service in England, but my husband is an immigrant, and he encouraged all of our boys to serve in the military. He taught them that military service was their patriotic duty, and so they just had it all in their mind that they would serve. So so they just grew up being taught that, and I know my father was a Korean veteran, and he was combat wounded, and he came home feeling like nothing was worth that sacrifice. And so that's what I grew up thinking. But when Jim and I got married, and I knew he felt very strong about military service, and when the first Gulf War broke out, there was an interview on the news that we were watching, a man on the street. They were saying, do you think we should be in Kuwait, and do you think we're doing the right thing? And they're like, oh yeah, we should do the right thing, or we're doing the right thing going in there. And they said, well, would you go, or would you send your son? They said, no, I wouldn't go, and I wouldn't send my son. And at that time, my boys were all little, no one was in school yet, and I thought, well, that's me. I don't want my kids to go in to serve, but I think somebody else should be doing it. And my husband stood up and he's like, how dare you? You're willing to send someone else's son and not your own. And I thought, that's just not right. So I started praying then that the Lord would change my heart to match my convictions. And so the Lord had to prepare me. Abe was already set, my husband was set, my boys were set, but the Lord had to change my heart for that service. And he really taught me the value of it. And I think there are things that are worth fighting for. And
well, as a member of non-military, I've never had to go and fight for my freedom. I've only been able to enjoy the freedoms that those people have afforded me.
Right.
So I am beyond grateful. I know I've written you letters over the years just trying to express my gratitude for your family. And I can't imagine what that feeling is like when you send your child. Another question I had was, do you think that 9/11 influenced him at all? Did it make him more determined to go serve, or did it make him a little reserved maybe?
It didn't make him reserved. He was very focused, and it didn't change his resolve at all. I know it changed me. I was like, well, and I don't know. I just, all I can talk about is myself. For Abe, it didn't change his focus at all. He still wanted to serve in spite of that incident, and maybe even more so because of it. And I thought, there's so many people from the past that have stories about near-death experiences, whether in combat or in a car. And I thought, my boys are going to grow up and they're going to have experiences like that too. And, you hear a lot of people. My dad had stories. A lot of veterans have stories, and I just thought, well, Abe's going to have those stories too. And but after everything that's happened, I thought, well, the stories that you don't hear are the ones that didn't come through. And so Abe's story, I live to tell it. But there are all those stories that are not being told, or that can't be told because those guys and women are not here. So that's another side. There's the stories that can be told and stories that will remain silent. But I try to tell the stories that I can. But it didn't change Abe's resolve, 9/11 at all. It just got a little scarier for me and for the parents, but for all the parents out there. But
well, that fact alone, I think, speaks of his character and his integrity.
Yeah.
That knowing it's different or at least I think it would be different to sign up for the military during a time of peace, where there's no active wars, at least that we're involved in.
Right.
I remember 9/11 very vividly, and how immediately after everybody kind of signed up and
right.
And those people are worth honoring, and I am honored to be able to share just a little bit. I mean, we can't do much in a short time of a 19-year-old life, but tell me, as far as Abe's faith is concerned, once he went to Iraq, and it's a different culture, the brutality of war, did that strengthen his faith? Did he ever question God about what the circumstances or what was going on, or why was he there?
Not from his letters or his phone calls or anything that I ever heard about him. In fact, one of his sergeants said that as a leader of Marines, that a lot of Marines looked up to him for strength, and he said that he found himself looking to Abe for the spiritual strength, that Abe was just a solid rock, his faith, while they were over there in Iraq. And which I was thankful for, because any mom of boys or girls probably too, you don't know what your kids are going to do once they're out of your sight. But a lot of the guys came back and told us that that Abe represented our family well, that he that his faith was rock solid, and that he continued to live just a life of integrity. I know one of the guys told me that he said, because pornography is a big thing in the military,
Right.
And one of the guys told me, I don't know how Abe did it. We would come in from a patrol, and there'd be something open as we're walking in, and I'd come by, and it's like, oh, okay, and I'd pick it up, and Abe would just walk in, he'd see it, and he would just turn away, and he'd walk away. And and as a mom, of a young man, it's like, wow, he's just so thankful to God that he was able to stay focused like that, and he had that testimony among the men that he served with.
Right.
So it didn't shake his faith. I know there was one incident, August 15th, where there was some cars that ran the gate, and they blew up the post there, and two of his friends were killed. and there was a big shootout, and they killed the guys that had run the gate. And Abe, he wrote a letter that we received later, weeks later, and it was marked to Dad only, and he was talking about an incident. And that really shook him. And there's a picture, one of the pictures he sent home was of his face, and it just was like this, I don't know, it was just solemn face, but it was dated on that day. Oh. And so it was interesting that he took a picture of himself on that day. But and that week afterward, he had called my husband at the office every day from Iraq, and Jim was like, I mean, we were glad to hear from him, but Abe didn't tell him why he was calling. But I think that was the first time that he lost friends, I suppose, and that it shook him, but not in his faith, just like, I don't know, it just made something real to him.
Just as a human, right?
Just as a human.
Yeah, just losing somebody.
It made something real to him, but his faith, he stuck with his faith. So
that's awesome.
Thankful for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Okay, so let's fast forward to November of 2004. Tell me just quickly about that day, how you were notified, who came to notify you.
Well, so it was a Wednesday. It was November 10th, which is the Marine Corps birthday. And just the day before, we had met at my house to gather Christmas items we were going to send to Abe's platoon, because my husband had asked him for a wish list for his platoon. So we were working on putting those things together. We met at my house the night before, sorting out all the things that we'd been gathering. And we were talking about how God had protected Abe through this one attack, an IED attack on his convoy, and just how everything was going pretty well. But at that time, Abe was already in heaven, and it was amazing. Here we were doing all this stuff, because it actually happened. Our time, I think it was like Monday night. So Tuesday, November 9th, we were putting those packages together. And so when they came to my house on Wednesday, I was getting ready to take my middle son to school. It was about 9. So we went out to the car, I opened the garage, and then when we opened the garage, I saw the trash cans out, so I thought, we have to put the trash cans out. So it delayed us a little bit. We went and put the trash cans out to the street. And then as we were going back to the car, there was a dark military color minivan that started coming down the street. And I live in a gated community, and I know pretty much my neighbors that drive past my house. And I saw that vehicle, and then for the passenger's sleeve, it was the Marine Alphas that he was wearing. And I thought, oh my gosh, Abe's in the Battle of Fallujah, and the Marines are coming to our house. They drove past our house. They made eye contact with me, and then they turned and they looked straight forward, and they drove past my house. And I thought, oh, they're going somewhere else. I thought, oh, Maria, the whole world is not all about you. There's probably somebody else in my neighborhood that has somebody in the military. So I turned around, and I was getting in the car, and then I turned around again, and the van was making the corner in my neighborhood. I thought, okay, see, they're going to someone else's house. So then I got in, and I got in the seat again, and I looked down, and they had actually turned around. They were parking across the street. It's like, oh, they are here for me. So
did you realize?
Oh yeah, that they were here for me. So my son David, he saw that they were here, and he just left, and he just took off walking. He was walking around the Greenbelt probably for 3 hours. So I got out of my car, and I just thought, these guys are here to tell me, some difficult news, but I just thought, how can I serve them? I don't want to be thinking about myself. I want to be thinking what it must be like for them. I walked out to the driveway, and they met me, and they said, "Are you Maria Simpson?" And wow, they know my first name and everything. I said yes, and they said, "Can we come in?" So we walked through the servants' entrance. I mean, we walked through the garage. We didn't go through the front door, all my garage, and we walked in that way. And my sister was at my house. She was at the kitchen. She used to clean my house, so she had gotten there that morning. So I said, "Cindy, you want to come and sit with us?" She's like, "Okay." So she came and sat with us. And we sat down, and they said the words that you know, we regret to inform you, and whatever those words are. And so they told us, and my poor sister, you know, was crying, and I was just in shock. I just remember thinking, you know, gosh, Abe was just here. He was just here on this earth, and now he's before the Lord, and it's just so amazing to think that he was in the Lord's presence, my own flesh and blood, my first try at parenting. He was standing before the Lord, and heaven just felt so close to me.
I'd say you did a pretty good job, by the way, at the first job at parenting.
Well, you know, it was, you know, our first is kind of our experiment, but it was amazing to think that he was with the Lord. And so the Marines, they asked, you know, they gave us some privacy. They walked off to the side so we could compose ourselves, and then they just asked if they could, you know, contact my husband and things like that. And so I remember I think they did call the church.
Yes.
And we got our first flowers delivered like an hour later from the Roderhavers. And people just started coming to the house, and we're getting phone calls, and so it was just a sea of people after that. And God was so faithful.
Yeah, I remember that day. I happened to be with a very good friend of mine, Vivian Radford, and her daughter had called, and we were on the way to an appointment. And I remember that day very well, and I also remember the day of his service very well.
Yeah.
I know that the community showed their support in big ways. I can only imagine what it's like driving up Central with all those people honoring Abe.
Yeah.
The 60 freeway being completely shut down all the way to Riverside, which is what, a 30-mile drive probably?
I don't know, but it was a long way.
And and fire engines at every overpassing with the flags crossed. That day is like embedded in my mind.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing just a little bit about Abe. I know we can't cover his entire life, but I know for all of us here and most of my viewers, I would imagine, my heartfelt condolences, obviously, as a mother. My heart breaks. But as an American, I'm extremely grateful that I don't have to worry about people coming into my house and hurting my girls.
Right.
Or the horrible things that they do, and that's because of people like your son.
Yeah.
And
I'm thankful for that too.
I'm incredibly grateful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Get it together. Okay. Well, thanks again so much for being here, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Our second guests are Melissa and Vincent Dominguez. Vincent was 6 years old when he was diagnosed with neuroblastoma in October of 2014. He had surgery to remove the tumor that was between his left lung and spine in November of 2014. All of his scans were clear until March of 2015. That is when they found a small spot close to where the original tumor was. Then a couple of weeks later, they found another spot. That is when they decided to start chemo. He then started 8 rounds of chemo, followed by 12 rounds of radiation. January 25th, 2016, he officially went into remission. You would never know this boy had been through so much when you see him. He is a light to everyone he comes in contact with, and I cannot wait to share his story with you. Get your tissues ready. Right? Get our tissues ready. Welcome to the show. I am honored to have all three of you. Actually, we have patient, mom, and Angel, right? So first I'll start with Vincent. Vincent, what was happening? Were you feeling sick? What caused you to?
I was feeling sick.
You were feeling sick.
Well, I had this cough.
You had a cough.
It was like a loud barking cough.
And that made you go to the hospital, go to the doctor?
Yeah.
Okay, so mom, what happened once you went to the doctor?
So he had the cough, and it had lasted a couple of weeks. You know, it was just a cough, and coughs go away.
Right.
So when he
It's been a week or two since I had it.
Yeah, it had been about 2 weeks. And then at that point, we decided to take him to the doctor. And his doctor was listening to his lungs and said his lungs sound clear, but I don't like the sound of the cough. Let's just get an x-ray, it can't hurt. So fortunately, his doctor was very much proactive, and we got the x-ray, and within an hour we got a phone call saying they see a little something, let's get an ultrasound. And then the next morning for the ultrasound, we went in and the radiologist called us in and said, you need to go back to your doctor, we've already talked to him, and because we don't have the MRI or the CT scans here at this facility. So you need to go to the hospital. So I think they kind of suspected what was going on at that point, but they weren't sure and didn't want to scare us, I'm sure, because all I was thinking was pneumonia or something along those lines.
I was going to ask you what I've been diagnosed twice, so I know, I mean, I don't know what it's like for a child,
Right.
but I know that anxiety of getting that phone call or them asking you to wait, right? Like after an x-ray or something. Oh, we'll just hold tight for a little bit,
actually, we
right?
had gone home. We just went ahead and went home because the radiologist wasn't there to read it right when we had it done. So, because we went at lunchtime, so it was just kind of an awkward time anyway. But, and honestly, I thought it was pneumonia. I figured, well, it's, pneumonia can be so weird. And so, but once we went back to the doctor and he sent us, as hindsight, he walked in and you could just see the look on his face. But then I didn't think,
You weren't
cancer?
thinking
Why would you
cancer,
think cancer?
right,
That's
right.
the last thing on my mind. So we went ahead and we went to the hospital and they did his CT, and within 45 minutes they came in and said, we're going to be admitting your son. We believe he has neuroblastoma. And I had heard of it before, and I said, that's cancer. And they said yes. And that's where it all started.
Vincent, did you understand when they told you what was going on? No, you didn't understand.
Not in the beginning. We had to explain.
Yeah.
And we had the social worker came in with us, and then they have child life specialists who came in and sat with us and helped to explain, because they're trained to explain these things to little people. And so that's how it is. We've always been very open. The only thing that he didn't know at that time and at the beginning was that there was a chance that he, wouldn't make it. That was just never, that was never anything that we ever.
Right.
Explain to me.
Yeah, because there was no need to at that point. And he was so little, he didn't want to. But once he started losing friends, because jump forward a little ways, you have to explain it. Then there's just no choice in the matter. But he took it like a champ.
I was going to say, how did you feel when you finally realized that this is something that could potentially kill you?
Pretty sad.
Pretty sad, I would imagine. You're a strong boy, though. Yeah, I hear you've gone on to do things for other people and helping other families and other kids. Tell me a little bit about that. What's your favorite thing to do, as far as that goes?
Make friends at the Ronald McDonald House.
Make friends at the Ronald McDonald House. Are you scared to make friends sometimes? Because they might die? No, that doesn't affect you. Well, you're a heck of a lot more strong than I am, I can tell you that much.
Well, when he lost his first friend, I had to explain to him.
Right.
I was so concerned. I didn't know how he was going to take it, because this is the first time anything like this. And I sat him down and I explained it to him, and it's okay, Mommy. He's okay now. He's not hurting anymore. And I'm just like, I was a wreck. He's just like, what's wrong with you? But yeah, he and with everybody pretty much, because he's lost quite a few friends over the past few years.
About 16, you said?
Yeah, and you get to know these kids when you're at the hospital or at the Ronald McDonald House, whether it's cancer or heart condition. You get to become family with these, because they understand what you're going through.
That's a family you don't ever want to belong to, right?
Right.
But thank God they're there. Because I know, for me personally, I can, Vincent and I have never met prior to today, but I feel like
You have a natural bond that I couldn't understand.
You have a bond, because
Right.
I've not the exact same stuff, but enough to where I And I was an adult. I was 30 years old the first time. I can't, you know. You're a pretty brave little guy. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of
No.
course.
So tell me, what is this you have in your bag
Sure.
here? Explain these beads to me a little bit.
These are my beads of courage.
And each one has a symbol, right?
Yes. Like, the black ones are for my needles.
Hold it up here so the people
black
can
ones
see
are
too.
for the needles, and the white ones are for my chemotherapy. And which ones are these ones, Mom?
I believe those are doctor's visits, oncology visits. And
So hold it up so we can see. How many beads are there total? Do you know?
About 600.
600. So you've had 600 events, we'll call them, right?
Yeah.
Since in the past, what, 3 years?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. That's a lot. That's a lot of stuff to go through when you're such a young boy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what were these ones for, Mom?
Those are for finishing up chemo and finishing up radiation. And
Those were celebratory, right?
Yes.
Did you get to ring a bell, or do they do anything like
only
that?
when you're admitted, you get to ring the bell. But
Okay.
because he was able to do, he was just such an unusual case for neuroblastoma anyway. He got to do all outpatient chemo and all outpatient radiation,
Oh, that's great.
which so many are inpatient,
right?
and which that's more common.
Mm-hmm.
Even with his doctor, we just do you want to tell him your good news?
We got my scan results back 3 days ago, I think, and I'm still cancer-free.
That is something worth celebrating. Did you get anything special? Did you get to go out to eat, or?
Yes.
Yeah. That was
What
a
did you have for
party.
dessert? Do you remember?
The
The brownie with ice cream.
brownie with ice cream.
Yeah, I think you deserved that. Okay, so I know in my life there's people that come up alongside of us, and you know, I don't know what I would do without them, and I'm sure the same rings true for you. And we actually have your quote unquote angel here today.
Yes, she's one of my dearest friends. We've been friends since 8th grade. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, a couple years.
Just a couple years.
It's only 10 years ago, or 30.
Tell me
And-
a little bit about her character, the kind of stuff that would cause her to do everything that she did for you. Without losing it. We're trying. We're really trying.
Oh, Vincent said she brought us Starbucks because, you know, in
And
life,
sometimes that's
what
all it takes, right?
really matters.
Yeah.
During everything, Margie was there for us. From literally day one.
It's okay.
And she has the tissues, of course.
I have tissues
Oh,
too.
literally from day one, she was. Oh, thank you so much.
I haven't used it. It's just
Oh,
from
well,
the
you
in my
know,
hand.
sharing tears. But she's just been,
She's been your rock, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, 100%.
What is it like on the outside watching somebody that you love so much?
Vincent was amazing through the whole thing. I mean, and honestly, he was our rock, and it's his spirit, who he was, encouraged us to such a level where there were no other options. This is what we're going to do. We're going to fight it. We're going to help people while we fight it. We're going to continue to help people, and so it just made you want to be a part of it. And he's shown that through so much. So many people gravitate to him because that's who he is. So the rock, now I'm blessed to be part of this journey. I was able to help and experience situations that, you know, God willing, most people don't have to, but
Right.
in a way we are privileged to be a part of, because we take that story and share those blessings on our way.
And it puts you, I don't want to say in a better position, but in a better position, really,
Yes.
having gone through that journey. I know there's so many aspects of my life that I wouldn't have had I have not gone through, and I'm sure the same rings true for you. You know,
Oh.
you wouldn't be able to empathize with other people going through this had you have not. And I think that's probably the silver lining.
I had never known another child
Yeah.
that had cancer until my own child had cancer,
Yeah.
which goes along with the Ronald McDonald House and Camp Ronald McDonald.
In the hospital.
In the hospital, of course. The infusion
Well,
center. He has
Made most of my friends in
his
the
firefighters,
infusion
Chino Valley Fire.
Supports him, right?
100%. They've been amazing, and Margie's actually involved with them also. She's one of their dispatchers, and he also donates toys.
Yes.
With the firefighters. He went up to the chief one day and asked if he could take toys to the infusion center, and they made it happen within a week. We were there with tons of toys for the kids
Right.
who were going through what he had already been through. Because he said, I understand. It gets boring in there sometimes.
Yeah.
You could be in there for hours and hours.
Yeah. Well, I've talked to my fair share of cancer patients, and you are the exception, because you took something that most people find very difficult and very trying and challenging, and you've turned it into an avenue where you can help other people. And I think that's why we go through these things, and I'm very impressed by you and your strength and your courage and just your character. I'm really impressed. I'm excited to see, we'll have to keep in touch. I'm excited to see what comes in your future, because I think it's going to be full of great things.
Okay.
Yeah, congratulations you guys on clear scans too.
Thank you. Yeah, that was very, very emotional.
Yes.
Couple of weeks leading up to that.
Yes.
So
Thanks so
We're
much
very
for being
excited.
here,
Thank you
sharing
for
a little
having
bit
us.
of your story. You gonna come
welcome.
back? We'll come back later. Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's a wrap for today's show. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.